Hi everybody, and welcome to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. For this video, I got a post from you from the subreddit entitled Parents with an update, and then one from Today I F'd Up. So if you want to get started with the stories, then just use the timestamps below the video. Now I would like to thank all of you that generously support me as either Twitch subscribers, YouTube members, or donating during the live streams. Your support really does mean a lot to me, so thank you very much. And if this is the first time watching one of my videos and you like it, then consider subscribing to the channel and joining us on Discord. Now let's get started with today's stories. This post is from the subreddit entitled Parents, and it's from user Morrigan1129. Ex's girlfriend expects me to take her kids for a weekend. My ex is not actually my ex. We've been separated for 9 years now, but we've never actually signed papers for numerous reasons, financial being the biggest one. We've co-parented our son well for those years, and for the past 8 years, we've included my boyfriend in the process. We've been doing quite well at this, and the three of us have established a pretty good relationship. 2 years ago, however, my ex got a new girlfriend. Her and I don't get along, mainly on her part. And no, I don't just say this because it's my side. I've always encouraged my son to respect her and try to get along with her, but he can't stand her or her 2 daughters. I don't mind her youngest. She's hyper and bounces off the wall, but she's 8. It's to be expected. The oldest one, 11, the same age as my son, however, is she's a bitch. She actively ridicules and belittles her sister, my son, and my daughter, 6. She's rude to me, my ex-in-laws, and even my ex. This girl is absolutely out of control. Background out of the way. Last weekend was my son's weekend at his father's. However, my ex and his girlfriend had been invited to an adult party. My ex and I were discussing it when he dropped my son off on Wednesday, and he mentioned that it might be easier if we switched weekends around. But he wasn't sure if he could find a babysitter for the 2 girls, so we had to wait and see. I was fine with that and told him to just keep me informed. Later that night, his girlfriend sent me a message saying that since I was taking my son for the weekend, !1, I could just take the 2 girls and keep them for the weekend too. Before I could even respond to this, she added that she would send me over clothes and some money so we could get pizza. I told her that I wouldn't be taking her girls, that I wasn't taking my son for the weekend, that he lives with me, and his father and I were just switching weekends around, and I certainly wasn't taking her children for the weekend. She sent a message back saying it was rude of me to not take her girls since she took my son every other weekend. Before I could respond again, she sent another message saying she'd sent over $15 for pizza. I told her that she didn't take my son on the weekends, that my son spent the weekends with his father, and reiterated again that I won't be taking her girls. She responded asking what I was doing that I couldn't take the girls. I told her we weren't doing anything, we were just going to have a nice relaxing weekend. She asked why I would ruin her and my ex's weekend by not taking the girls. By this point, I was annoyed. I told her that I didn't like her oldest daughter, and she was a brat, and she wasn't allowed in my home outside of emergency situations. She responded by saying that I was an awful person, a terrible mother, and I didn't deserve children since I clearly didn't understand parents who just need a break. I ended up blocking her, but damn. Wow, yeah OP, how could you have sympathy for parents that need a break when... Wait, you're a parent too, aren't you? The entitlement of this person is ridiculous. I mean, the fact that you had to explain to her that you don't take your kid, that he lives with you, and that she doesn't take your son because he just goes to visit his father, when it's scheduled to. What, is this one of these people that as a parent she calls it babysitting when it's her own children? Good for you for telling her you're not gonna take her kids. I mean, she pushed you and pushed you and pushed you for an answer as to why not. Well, you answered. You don't like her oldest daughter. Simple. Some people might find that rude, but hey, she pushed you and you were honest. You don't have to like every kid out there. And what do you guys think? Do you think OP was right to tell the ex's girlfriend that she doesn't like her daughter, so that's why she's not gonna have him during the weekend? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they had to say. Toger Sucks says, be on the lookout for those kids showing up at your door and her car being gone by the time you answer it. Edit. If possible, try to plan not being home when this situation might occur. Take your son out for the day somewhere and document it on social media. Have those texts saved that explicitly told her you would not be watching her kids. Bippity Boppity Box 2 says, is everyone else overlooking the fact that OP called an 11-year-old a bitch? To which OP responds, firstly, I have never called this child a bitch to her face. Part of the reason I don't want her over is because if she was and she pulled her attitude, I would call her a bitch. Maybe that makes me a terrible person. However, I think letting a child get away with whatever they want, letting them do whatever they want with zero consequences, makes kids spoiled rotten bitches. So perhaps the fault lies more with her mother. This child has 1. Told my son his father doesn't love him and says so all the time while he's not there. 2. Been physically aggressive with my son until I told him to start getting back in her face. 3. Left bruises on her own sister. 4. Told me to my face that I'm not welcome at my in-laws' family gatherings and I should, and I quote, just go die somewhere. 5. Told my daughter she looks like a cow's ass. 6. Swung my in-laws' cats around by their tail, let go and laughed as they went sailing across the yard. These are just a few of the things that come to mind. But yeah, how dare I call an 11-year-old out on her behavior? Beep da Bop says, you are too old to so immaturely call a child, an 11-year-old child, the B word. At that age, they know what they are taught. Have some sympathy. Notice I didn't say allow her to walk all over your child or come into your space. Poor girl has an entitled mom who allowed her to be that way, and another woman in her life calling her a bitch. Get some perspective. Maybe show her how a mature woman in control of her emotions can act. To which again OP responds, firstly, I wholeheartedly embrace the idea that being a bitch has nothing to do with age. Do you think Karens just pop out of vacuums at the age of 30 with their Chelsea haircuts and manicures? No. Now, if I were calling, say, a 4-year-old a bitch, I would agree with you. All children at that age are spoiled and believe the world revolves around them. At 4, they're growing out of it. But when you torment small animals and small children, when you're rude and obnoxious to everyone, when you leave bruises from pinching and biting your little sister, when you walk up to people and tell them, you're stupid, I believe that makes you a bitch, regardless of age. Secondly, I have never called this little demon spawn a bitch to her face. I've never even called her a brat to her face before. I've never told her mother how I felt about her before this instance, since it wasn't any of my business really. Thirdly and lastly, I'm not her mother. I don't need to have sympathy or perspective on a child who isn't mine, who has done all of the above, because my children have been taught better than that. As someone who has worked incredibly hard to make sure my children are polite and will go on to be halfway decent members of society when they reach adulthood, I'm allowed to be grumpy and judgy about people who don't. OP's edit. Wow, firstly, thank you all for the awards. I was just griping about my ex's girlfriend, lol, didn't expect all this. Secondly, while I've tried to respond to a lot of you, as a few general points. 1. I don't know where the girl's bio dad is. Ex's girlfriend is from the West Coast, we live on the East Coast, and I've never felt it my place to ask. 2. She doesn't end up raising my son on the weekends. My ex knows our son isn't a fan, so they typically go fishing, camping, or hiking. My ex loves our son and spends as much time with him as possible. 3. No, I did not call the 11-year-old a bitch to her face or to her mother's face. I told her mother she was a brat, yes. If that makes me a terrible person, well, so be it. 4. I have screenshot the pictures of our conversation and I planned on talking to my ex when he picks our son up on Wednesday. I currently haven't heard from either of them, so I guess we'll see if she tries to drop them off tonight at 6, lol. Well, the majority of the community think that OP was in the right for telling that mom what she told her, but I also wanted to show you a couple of comments from people that were hung up on OP's use of the word bitch for the 11-year-old. I don't know how you feel about that. If you have a comment on it, just go ahead and do it in the comment section, but now you know what OP would respond. So at this point, let's move on with the update that tells us how this situation ended up unfolding. The night in question, when she had wanted to drop her kids off, my ex called me at 5 p.m., an hour before what the usual pickup or drop-off time is for my son. He asked if I'd agreed to take the two girls, since he knew I wasn't overly fond of having them over, but girlfriend had said yes. I told him that I quite clearly told her no in no uncertain terms, and told him to check his email, and that I'd emailed him screenshots of the conversation after it happened. He sounded upset and told me he apologized and he'd discuss it with her and see our son next weekend. He picked our son up yesterday for a few hours and apologized again and told girlfriend that she was not allowed to contact me unless it was an emergency situation and she was never to ask me to babysit again. I told him I understood, it wasn't anything on him, and left it at that. Unfortunately, my ex is someone who needs to be with someone, and I don't mean that as an insult, just pointing it out. We were miserable for most of our marriage, but he still didn't want to separate because he can't stand to be alone. And there you go. Eventually, thankfully, the ex stood up and told the girlfriend that she couldn't just expect OP to take care of her kids and she shouldn't contact her anymore. So that's good. So now let's move on to the next post. This post is from the subreddit Today I F'd Up, and it's from user Tipsy Traveler. Today I F'd up by misinterpreting the CEO's arm gesture in a job interview and then locking arms with him as if we were best friends forever. Obligatory. This happened yesterday. The memory still makes me cringe and cry. I had a job interview with a CEO in person, despite COVID. I was super nervous as per usual. Maybe even more than usual because I really wanted this job. I tried to calm myself down, but by the time the interviewer showed up, I could literally feel my heartbeat in my throat. He, 50-ish male, walked down the stairs towards me in his nice suit, but stopped halfway down. I figured the interview would take place upstairs, so I got up to meet him. And as I was walking up the stairs towards him, he put his arm up and his elbow out. And my brain just sort of went, error. I suppose it could have only meant two things. It could have meant A, please take my arm, milady, so I can escort you to the room as if we're strolling down the promenade together. Or B, please give me an elbow bump since we can't shake hands, which is really not an uncommon gesture at all in the Netherlands. So what did I do? Yes, I went with option A, and I eagerly locked arms with this strange man that I'd never met before in my life, as if saying, yes, good sir, let's go for that stroll. And then we just stood there, arm in arm, halfway up the stairs, sheepishly staring at each other. I wanted the earth to swallow me whole. I just didn't know what to do next, and I don't think he'd fully understood what happened, so neither of us moved. When he'd finally gathered his senses, he said, I meant to give you an elbow bump? After which I quickly put as much distance between us as I could and mumbled, right, that makes much more sense. Because it did, let's face it. And then we had the interview. Well, OP, this is a hilarious and wholesome F-up, and hopefully it didn't, take anything away from your interview and you had a good interview. I can imagine it. I can totally picture it, him just putting his arm out to give you the elbow bump and you just locking arms and then just looking at him and he looking at you like, what are you doing? Oh man, it must have been hilarious. Anyways, there is a short update from OP, so let's check that out really quickly. I got the job! Well, good for you, OP, and thanks so much for sharing your awesome F-up. And it's that time that we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I certainly did reading them to you. So if you did, then go ahead and give the video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and become a member of our Discord community that just keeps growing, and it is fantastic. And like I said in the beginning of the video, all of the relevant links are in the video description below, so be sure to check them out. And finally, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. It really does mean a lot to me that you guys enjoy this content, so thank you once again. And having said all that, I will see you guys in the next video.